Lieutenant Colonel Halevi sent me 60 pages in Arabic of what's called the Hamas War Diary, which had this information. It also had information, that and other materials. Pardon?
How did you find it, the diary?
He'll give you the URL. It's on the web, in Arabic. And I'm going to share with you something else.
Why someone will put it on the web?
You know what, if it's made up? I'll ask him to answer. Will you answer that question? Why don't you answer it right now?
Hamas documents.
Wait, come up here, Yoni.
Hamas documents on a daily basis, all of these operations. So if you gather all this information, all the announcements, you get the war diary of Hamas.
Okay. So it's all formal documents. Right?
Formal Hamas documents. They not only say that there were military operations, like in Zaytun neighborhood, where some of the most horrible instances in the Goldstone report are located. They not only talk about those operations, they also say, for example, that Hamas had a military modus operandi, that if Hamas was looking at a civilian house, and they assumed that there were Israeli soldiers in that house, and they knew there were Palestinian civilians in the house, they shot at that house in the Gaza Strip. What does that suggest about who's responsible for losses in these terrible cases where civilians might have been hurt, in fact were hurt?
Okay, so can I ask
So let me just give you the final closure on this. I sent Lieutenant Colonel Yoni Halevi's material to the Goldstone Commission before it was ever released. And then I called them and I said, I'm sending you 60 pages in Arabic. Do you want us to translate it for you? And I was told, no, we have people who can read this. I'll let Lieutenant Colonel Halevi describe how the Goldstone report related to our material. But it goes back to your question. Here was material that could have had a very strong impact on the way the fundamental issues that are analyzed by the report appear. They might have raised questions. Well, maybe it's not so certain that there was no fog of war. Maybe there was a fog of war. Maybe Israel was engaged in very hard battles in Zaytun neighborhood, and I can't say that Israel was killing civilians deliberately. But that means they would have to take our material seriously. Well, we barely made it into the footnote, whereas others made it into the central analysis. Please, Anshul.
You're saying that you're basically attacking the whole basis for the Goldstone report, at least military analysis. Would you not say that Israel should now set up a commission to investigate the report and what actually happened there, which the government is still refusing to do right now?
There's a decision the Israeli government has to make about how to handle this situation. I know that there was an initial report given to the Secretary General, which is, I think, available on the web at the Foreign Ministry website, that analyzes maybe 4 or 5 incidents that were controversial in the Goldstone report. And we are expecting a complete report on the instances raised by Goldstone in the weeks and months ahead. But it's clear that Israel can address the charges made in the Goldstone report. And it is looking at the facts.
In what form, asking you as a former advisor to the Prime Minister, in what form do you think they should be doing this? Because you're doing a press conference at a think tank, which is very important. It's not the same thing as the government not only publishing a report, sorry, but having a serious investigation, public and transparent.
Because I'm a private think tank, I obviously am not going to start analyzing incidents from the war from the standpoint of what happened on the ground. But I certainly have a right to analyze the faulty methodology used by trappers and raise serious questions.
Do you think the Israeli government should now set up a commission?
I think it is. I think it would be reasonable, certainly, for different branches of the IDF to take the material that it is currently developing and bring it to some kind of conclusion about the veracity of the Goldstone report. I mean, for example, Mohammed Fuad Abu Askar, whose house is described in the report the destruction of whose house is described in the report as a case of indiscriminate IDF fire against civilians, against civilian infrastructure. Well, in the last presentation to the Secretary General, the IDF reveals that in Abu Asghar's home, there were Grad rockets in the basement, and therefore it was a legitimate military target. To say that it was just a civilian target that Israel deliberately destroyed is completely misleading. So I think it would be useful if we take all of the reports on the instances that Goldstone raises and bring them together.
And that's different from an independent commission.
Look, let me say something, because I know, at least in this area, I know there are many people abroad who are saying, well, why don't you get a former justice of the Supreme Court to form a commission of inquiry? You know what? I rely on Dorit Beinish. Why do I say that? Because in the Israeli military system, as all of you know, we have the Judge Advocate General, the Patsar. He can independently order investigation even if a divisional commander doesn't want it, which is not true in other Western armies. And let's say he doesn't do his work. Well, then the legal advisor, the Attorney General, can order an investigation of any military case that comes on his desk. And let's say the legal advisor doesn't do his work. Doesn't want to. Lo naim lo. Then the Supreme Court can order an investigation. In June of 2009, when a Spanish court, still operating under the laws of universal jurisdiction in Spain, which had not yet been altered, considered the Israeli legal system and whether it was fitting for the Spanish legal system to order an investigation of the killing of Shchada by the IDF and the civilians who were killed as a result. The Spanish court decided the Israeli legal system was sufficiently competent to handle it itself, and therefore, by the principle of complementarity, it wasn't going to initiate an investigation using universal jurisdiction in Spain because Israel's investigation was inadequate. In other words, the Spanish decided that Israel's investigative system was fine. So what I'm saying is that why do we need to have, in my opinion, a special investigation of the war when we have civilian oversight in the state of Israel to an extent that no other army has? And why should we start getting other retired Supreme Court justices involved when if the Supreme Court of the State of Israel finds it fitting, it can investigate it itself? So that's the structure of the Israeli legal system. And so I think to talk about my personal opinion, to talk about an additional investigation of Operation Cast Lead at this point would be completely redundant.
But he could put the fallout. He could control the negative fallout in terms of the favor.
In my opinion, we cannot. Israel is now waging two kinds of wars. There is a military struggle against terrorism, like many countries in the world, and there's a political war being waged against the state of Israel. And the political war being waged by Hamas through its legal arm, through courts in London, is seeking to tie the hands of the IDF so that Israeli army can no longer defend the state of Israel. And I think it would be a terrible mistake for us to fall into the trap that Hamas is setting for us in that respect. And therefore, if in the future we are forced into conflict against our will, and we have to defend the state of Israel, I would not like to see Israeli generals going into battle with lawyers at their side carrying briefcases.